Welcome to the Secure the Perimeter podcast.
What's going on, people? Welcome back to the Secure the Perimeter podcast. My name is Caden. I'm joined again by CEO Smart Digital Essential Pods, Brent Canfield. What's going on?
What's up, Caden? How's it going, man?
Pretty good. A lot has kind of happened here, as we can see. We kind of changed the scenery here.
Yeah, man. Switch it up a little bit. Switch up the studio.
Yeah,
Cool.
I personally dig it. But yeah, so today we'll be kind of talking about everything regarding leadership, kind of what goes into being a leader, becoming a leader, kind of just all the aspects of leadership.
Yep.
Kind of starting off, our main theme is that a title doesn't really make you a leader. So, we have all these, CEO, CFO, director, manager, all these things, but it's really kind of the person who is in said leadership role that is what makes a leader. What do you think on that?
Well, I've had the privilege of serving with people that operated at the highest levels, right? Operators, recon, Marines, SEALs, and those dudes operated at the highest levels, right? So, and let me tell you, in that theater, in that environment, rank has no stature, no position, right? Rank is definitely necessary to establish structure, but I've always been a big believer in not leading with a title or a rank, right? And I've worked and served with leaders, and I've worked and served with people that led with their chevrons, as we said in the Marine Corps. Guys that would push their rank and their chevrons around, and you know what, that and a buck could get you a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
because it really, that kind of ego has no place on the battlefield, just as well as in the boardroom. I've since I've been out, I've been on this side of the fence in regard to structure and leadership, and even being the owner of the company, I've sat in boardrooms with very prestigious titles and people of power, and I was not very impressed by their leadership.
Yeah. What type of architect kind of what are some things from in your experience maybe is when you served, because those guys, like you said, are kind of the upper echelon of kind of the general population. Those guys are kind of the 1% of the 1%, if you want to call them that. Talk to me about what kind of makes those guys that at that level.
People these are dudes that are willing to put it all on the line for their fellow brother, right? So these are guys that operated, and their number one goal was to operate and function as a team to support their team, right? The way they trained, the way they operated, the way they communicated, their focus, everything was 100% around, the improvement of the team, and so, and fast forward now into the corporate environment, the corporate environment is literally, somebody or an organization that is creating a product or a service for a market, right? And so they also have to work as a team, not at that level of, the teams I'm used to serving with, but they have to operate at a very high level, in order to make the organization successful. But that's two types of leaders.
Yeah.
And they're, in comparison, it's not even really the same type of leader.
Yeah. What were you guys' kind of routine when you were serving? Because I was watching this podcast with Chris Williamson. He had DJ Shipley on, and he kind of made the comparison of how like in his case, the SEALs, it was like kind of like they trained how like professional sports teams trained. You know, they wake up, they go get their lift in, they, you know, go skydive, which is their form of training, or whatever it may have been. What kind of like walk me through a day in a life of like what you guys train, or how you guys train, and how that kind of schedule or regiment kind of translates into your schedule now.
Well, again, you know, operating at that level, you know, in the military, that's what we live to do. So we live to train, work out, you know, get in shape. And so what that does is it builds mental clarity. It's absolutely essential to get up and start your day in arduous exercise, because it does so much for your mental clarity, so much for your physical capability. But I just believe that it also helps you to become a more refined leader in the decisions that you make, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of the mottos we used in the Marine Corps is slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? So it's all built on repetition. So you get up and you do the same routine. So our routine, our regimen was wake up and first thing we do is brush our teeth, form it up, and we go on a run, you know, 5, 10, 15-mile run. And then we come back and then we get the day started, you know. So, you know, that was a daily routine. And so that's what we live to do, right? But I think it you know, keeping that kind of routine builds, and it not only builds repetition, but it also builds you to become, you know, a more refined person with more mental clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it sounds pretty fun. Just, I mean, obviously it's much more than this, but just kind of waking up with your boys every day, going for a run, going to the gym. Doesn't sound, it sounds pretty fun to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, going back to your comment, you were talking about the interview with Shipley. You know, Shipley's talking about, you know, the daily routine and comparing it to sports teams. You know, some of the sports teams that operate at the D1 level definitely are high performers, you know, and all people like Kobe Bryant did, and LeBron and Michael Jordan, you know, the elites, that's all they did, man. That's all they do is, you know, they just train day in and day out, and they're putting in the time, they're putting in the hours. They don't care about anything else other than execution, performing, training to sharpen their skill sets, you know, and that's what leaders do.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how have you say, you know, you've taken your tactical background, made it into a technical capability, yeah. What are some of those skills, kind of universal skills you've taken from your background in the military to now every day in the office?
So operating at the tactical level is interesting because I've been able to assert and see the tactical comparisons to converting into a technical capability now. Like when I transitioned out of the Corps, when I totally got out of the Marine Corps, and I transitioned out of that career, I was able to assert and basically convert my tactical background into a technical capability now. You know, before we kicked indoors and we would pie the corner and we used tactics to envelop and close in on the enemy. Now we converted that into a technical capability and securing the perimeter for customers. You know, so it's a very transferable skill.
Yeah.
Right. But that's another form of leadership. It's how you improvise and utilize those skills that you've learned to transfer those into a productive way to serve a market. You know, after getting out of the military, you know, it's instead of, you know, looking and hunting the enemy, now it's like I use those skills to serve customers and secure their facility, their perimeter. Right?
Yeah. Going back to, you know, you guys' training routine in the Corps, how important was it to have guys that were even better than you, all around you, at times when you
100%.
did that really push you? Be like, hey, I
Yep.
see this guy getting up. You know, we're supposed to be at
Yep.
6 a.m. He's in there at 5 a.m. He's already getting the work in. How important is that your circle that you surround yourself with?
For me personally, I think it's critical. I always looked at mentors. I always looked for Marines that were already in the Corps. You know, they'd been in the Corps for, 2 tours. And when I was a young Marine, I always wanted to surround myself with the leaders. And I just think it's important to find a mentor no matter where you're at, whether you're in the military or, in the civilian population. Find a mentor and just learn from the mentor, if that's your thing. I mean, a lot of people do that. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't want mentors. But for me, I always look for mentors. And the mentors are the leaders, right?
Yeah.
The very topic we're talking about, the people that got stuff done, no matter the cost, no matter the requirement, they just got it done. They would execute. So They were the guys that definitely were at the gym at 4 and 5 in the morning, already getting after it well before anybody else showed up, or they were going on a run by themselves and they were running up the mountain, putting themselves through it, getting on, getting it on, well before everybody else. Those are the leaders. Those are the guys that, you can tell, a good leader from a bad leader. And there are definitely plenty of bad leaders.
And how many of those sort of guys were kind of like you around? Those guys who, supposed to be there at 6 a.m. Was it like kind of the whole group? Because, those, I don't know how it is in terms of, Marines versus SEALs versus, Army or whatever it is. But I would like to assume that all those guys are there kind of the 1% of the 1%. So what does kind of your circle look like back then?
I didn't work with Army Special Operations as much as I worked with SEALs. And I would even say on the record that SEALs are closest thing to Marines as you're going to get. And Marines are the closest thing to SEALs as you're going to get. Because of the way the SEALs operate. They're just elite dudes. They're freaking phenomenal warfighters. I loved working with SEALs. I worked with many SEALs in Iraq. And I think that, the SEALs operate at that level. That's definitely the level they operate at. So for me, it's like, those are the dudes that I wanted to be around all the time because I wanted to be the best Marine I could be.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the best warfighter I could be. I wanted to know all of my knowledge. I wanted to know history of the Marine Corps. I wanted to know my job. I wanted to know, tactics, to the best of my ability, the relative effectiveness of my explosives that I used. And when I was on amphibious teams, boat teams, I wanted to know that boat better than anybody else. I wanted to know the speed, the horsepower of the boat. I wanted to know how many attempts it was going to take to get through the tide to get out into the ocean and after many flips and flipping the boat. And I know all the SEALs can definitely relate to that. They know exactly what I'm talking about. All the recon Marines know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty arduous to splash, man, when you're in a Zodiac. So, but in terms of leadership, I always wanted to, I volunteered to deploy. I volunteered to do all the training I could do. I went to boat school. There's a plethora of schools I went through while in the Marine Corps, but I wanted to be someone else could count on as I grew and developed myself as a Marine.
Yeah.
So naturally it's like, that's your leaders, the people that are always trying to push themselves, when everyone's off the clock, and you're gone home for the day or whatever, you're still out there getting it. That's what leaders are made of, not titles, not rank.
Yeah. You talked about how, how important mentors are, how important it is to have someone you can kind of look up to in a sense for their 2 cents of the world and things like that. What would you say off the top of your head is the most memorable or most life-changing piece of advice that you've received from a mentor?
A lot of advice. Lots of advice, man. One that sticks in my head was a first sergeant. He was force recon his whole career. He came to us as a first sergeant when he had to do his B billet, and he would always say, you know, don't talk about it, be about it. You know, execute. Don't talk about it, do it.
Yeah.
You know, and the way you show your leadership is you be the leadership. You do it. You don't talk about it. You know, don't talk about what you can do. Execute. Do it.
Yeah. How hard is that though?
It's just arduous, man. It's every day. I mean, you know, there's days you just don't feel like getting up and going for a 15-mile run, but you know that, you know, the nation's counting on us. And when you wake up and that thought crosses your mind that all the Americans throughout the United States are relying on me to defend them, it makes the decision simple.
Yeah.
Get up and do it.
Yeah.
Just execute.
And I think even, you know, just taking that into everyday life, just doing the things that you don't want to do, or specifically choosing to do the things that you want to do, or the hard things, you know. Like right now, my buddy and I, we're training for the Columbus Marathon. So this past week, you know, it's been 95 and humid, but you know, we're like, you know, got to get after it.
Yeah, man.
You know, and we just did we did like a half marathon this past weekend. It was like 13.1 miles for because you know it's in our training program for the months leading up to. But I think like it's so for just anyone for them to choose to do hard stuff in life, just because it translates to like translates across your entire life when you go to work, when you know you go to the gym, or you go run, or you know you want to start that new business. You know, you have that kind of, as you say, mental fortitude, or just that willingness to grind, to get over the line. Well,
the rain doesn't care, humidity doesn't care, the heat doesn't care. It's there.
Yeah.
The only other variable that needs to be plugged into that equation is you.
That's right.
And too many people that call themselves leaders get in the mix of their feelings. Going back to your previous question about, you know, some advice I've received from people over the years is get out of your feelings. It's not about you. I remember I was a young PFC, you know, and I'm learning and I'm trying and I'm growing. And he would tell me, he pulled me aside one day and he said, listen, man, if you want to make it, if you want to be a great Marine, stay out of your feelings. Dismiss your feelings. Get out of your head, get out of your feelings, and just do it, right? Because the circumstances don't care. The job still needs done. The mission still needs accomplished, and you still have people to serve. You know, America is counting on us to keep them secure. America is counting on us to be role models.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, it's like, you know, too many people let their feelings get in the mix.
Yeah. And I mean, when you do let those feelings, you know, kind of start to ruminate and creep in, you kind of start second guessing yourself. You're like, oh, maybe I am too tired, or oh, maybe, you know, I did just run yesterday. Maybe I should get a rest. Yeah. And then, you know, all these voices start to kind of compile on, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, you know, yeah, it's just one day. It's just one day. I'll take today off. But then you're like, the next day, it's like, man, I had a long day at work. You know, my girlfriend just broke up with me. Oh, my mom's sick. Oh, you know, it's just the world is coming up after me. It's like, I don't know why this is happening to me. But I think, like, to your point with the feelings, it's like, you know, once you say you're going to do something, you just, doesn't matter how you feel. It's just, you got to do it.
So that brings up a great point, man. And this needs to be said to everybody who thinks they're a leader, or everybody that wants to stand in the leader arena. Get out of your feelings. You're not entitled. And to be quite honest, David Goggins says this so well, and I love David Goggins for many reasons. People call this the pain cave. The reason why Goggins gets out every day and gets after it, because he's preparing himself for that day. The day he gets the tragic news. The day he goes through it. The day that that the whole world collapses around him. He's training for that day, right? To get himself mentally prepared.
Yeah.
And physical exertion is one of the bestest, quickest, fastest, most effective ways to get to your intestinal fortitude, because your intestinal fortitude is not a word. It's a state. It's a feeling. And and learn what your intestinal fortitude is when you're 15 miles out and you've got zero in the tank.
That's right.
That's when you connect directly with your intestinal fortitude. And too many people, and I'm call people out. It's okay. I've ticked people off before, but they are the furthest thing from leaders, because a leader gets out there, whether it's raining, whether it's hot and humid, like you did, and they do it anyway, because the humidity don't care.
Yeah.
The humidity doesn't have feelings like you do. The rain doesn't have feelings like you do. And so when you don't feel like getting up and getting after it, remember somebody's counting on you, whether it's your kids, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your team members, whether it's your friend that's going to be in the marathon with you. They're counting on you.
Yeah. That's why I love running so much, because, and just, fitness for the most part in general is, you can't fake it, you know? Like it takes,
well said.
It takes a lot. When it comes to running, I know, it takes a lot of work just to be a below average runner. You see these guys are running sub 2 hour marathons and all these, like 15-minute 5Ks and all these crazy things. And you're like, oh man, that doesn't sound too bad. But, you're about 400 meters in.
Yep.
Heavy breathing, and your legs are hurting. There's no hiding. Like you said, once you get up to mile 15, mile 20, and you're all alone, and you're just running through backcountry roads, no one can see you, but that's when, for me, it's like that's when it matters the most. When it's just you out there. You don't have a training partner out with you to help keep you going. There's not, you're not running through town to kind of get that boost from seeing people.
And I think the biggest thing, man, about leadership, Caden, when you really get down to brass tacks, is leadership is a transferable skill. You can learn anything in the world. You learn leadership, you can go anywhere. It's a transferable skill. So when you learn how to lead, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Whether the environment or not, you lead. And that's one thing that's always made Marines very effective, is that's all we live and breathe leadership in the Marine Corps at the highest level. When you have to give a brief to a commanding, not just a commanding officer, commanding general, he's watching every move. He wants to know your plan down to the 10th degree. He wants to know your contingency plan based on your contingency plan. He wants to know who your aid and litter team is, who your point man is, who your navigator is, what happens if the aid and litter team goes down, who's his replacement, what do you do with the objective, what's your command and signal plan, how do you pivot, when do you shift fire. He wants to know every minor detail to your mission, and he studies it. So he's not just, and I see a lot of corporate leaders, they're kind of in the mix and they kind of don't know what's going on because they only have a bird's eye view. Commanders are at the 10th degree level. They want to know every minute detail, and they micromanage that mission to make sure that mission's successful. And without that leadership, without them leading and getting in the details, without that, the mission would fail.
Yeah. You say that leadership is a transferable skill. I may disagree with you on that. And I say that because I'll kind of answer it by asking you a question. Do you think that leadership is a transferable skill just because of who you are, because of what you've been through, your experiences? You can do hard things and you choose to do hard things, but not everyone's like you. Not everyone's like me. Not everyone runs marathons. Not everyone goes in the Marine Corps. So
leadership's not a person. So leadership is a skill, and you learn the skill. You learn how to be a leader. Leadership to me is transferable because you can take leadership anywhere. I can take a guy who leads and put him in charge of a mission, no matter what that mission is, and he'll execute on that mission every time. Because he knows how to lead. He knows how to navigate the waters, how to guide, how to improvise, how to overcome objectives.
Does he know how to lead because you gave him the kind of the blueprint to follow, or is that him kind of taking authority over his team that you assigned him to?
Both. So natural born leaders are people that can go anywhere and succeed because they have that, as you called, the blueprint of how to develop a plan and how to stick to the plan and how to make that plan successful by steps, right, in the process. And so that's why so many veterans that get out of the military are successful in life, because they've learned those basic leadership skills, and those leadership skills are transferable in any environment. And so many veterans that get out become successful as entrepreneurs. They become successful, factory workers. They become successful products of the society that they serve, because they have that basic fundamental skill set in leading people. Yeah.
And do you think that all comes from their experiences, or like you said,
100%.
like there are your God-given, so to speak, I guess, leaders that are just born with it, or the people that kind of live their life and through their experiences they kind of learn the blueprint, so to speak?
I would say like this, man. And I say this a lot. People are, I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I could never be a Marine." And I'm like, "Yeah, you could. Sure can. It's all in here."
Yeah.
I think anyone could become a U.S. Marine. I think anyone could become a U.S. Navy SEAL, but it's not for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
So the people that don't make it, it's like Henry Ford said, whether you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. It's all in your head. The people who quit are quitters. The people who make it are the people that make it. So I think anybody could become a Marine, but it's just not for everybody. And so you find out real quick when your feet hit the yellow footprints, is this really for me? And what's your level of quit? If you have no level of quit, if you have no quit, you'll make it. You'll be fine. If you join Buds because you want to become a Navy SEAL and you think what you got what it takes to be a Navy SEAL, you'll find out on the first swim, on the first splash, on the first sugar cookie. You'll find out real quick whether you're going to be a SEAL or not. It's how much you got in the tank. Because if you have no quit, you could become a Navy SEAL.
Did you see a lot of guys kind of, like, you could just tell by their face that, they either were or they were not going to make it within the first few hours maybe?
You have an idea, but sometimes you get deceived and you think guys that would have never made it are the guys who make it.
Yeah.
And the guys you think are solid because they're built, they're physically really strong. They're huge.
Yeah.
Some of the first to quit.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, if you look at Navy SEALs, if you look at Marine Recon, they're not all buff dudes. They're not all buff, but they're trim and they're cut.
Yeah.
Some are not great in size, but they're physique.
Yeah.
They have the stamina to get through it, to carry the boats. Boats, oh my word. Carrying boats are one of the hardest things to do when I was, on boat teams. And the Navy SEALs know exactly what I'm talking about, have to carry the boats. You're talking about breaking down a motor that's 400 or 500 pounds, breaking a boat down that's 700 pounds and carrying it through the sand. That's arduous.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
What did you guys' training look like then when it came to, I can't even imagine like what your maybe gym sessions looked like if you got to carry, 700,000 pound boats.
You definitely, you had to run. You had to do a lot of running. You had to run in the sand on the beaches. It's one of the most brutal cardiovascular exercises you can do is running on the beach.
Did you guys have to run with all your gear on? Or? Not
all the time, no, man. But we would run with gear a lot. Yeah, we would run with gear. We'd hump with gear. We'd hike, miles and miles with gear. That's that's designed to build endurance, you know, physique with your body. But a lot of the exercises we did were cardiovascular. Like Marines just love to run, you know. And so we would run to the beach and we'd run down in the water, back up out of the water, into the sand, back down to the water. And which one's worse? They're both about the same. Running through the water, you know, knee high, and then running up into the sand where the sand shifts a lot and you're trying to get traction. You can't get traction, but you're trying to run fast.
Yeah.
And your legs are on fire, they're burning, and you just do that for miles. But that builds your endurance and enables you the ability to carry boats, you know. And they do that for a reason, because it takes a lot to lift a boat as a team and carry it. You're not going to lift a boat by yourself. You're not going to lift a motor by yourself, although I saw it happen. But it's, a motor is like a 2-3 man carry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mentioned, the importance of a good circle. And I think for as much as it is important to kind of individually, go out and execute things, how important was it every day, you're just in the weeds struggling with this group of guys? How did that help you guys kind of bond and be even more successful as a team?
You bond with the people that you go through the suck with, the guys that you just, that you all have the same capability and you're very similar in nature because you've endured all the hard things. For the SEALs, it's the sugar cookie, it's the carrying the boats, it's the running, it's the log drills. Marines do some of the same exact things, log drills, running on the beach, carrying the boats, if you're on boat teams. And so you bond with people that you suffer with. As crazy as it sounds, you build a esprit de corps, as we called it in the Marine Corps, esprit de corps. You bond with those dudes that you suffer with, and because it becomes very close in nature, because it's like we've been through the same things, we've experienced the same suffering.
Yeah.
And you bond with those guys because you're my type of dude, because you got through it. You didn't quit. You didn't drop.
Yeah.
You didn't leave your team for selfish ambition or selfish reasons because you couldn't get through it.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting the guys down that quit, but they quit. So they're not there anymore. They ring the bell. They left. And so you bond with the dudes that refuse to ring that bell.
Yeah. Well, also just shows their character, I think, as well. What type of person kind of shows their mettle, where they, are they someone who really will go all the way or give their all, or are they the one kind of just throwing the towel?
Yeah, and to get into the level of leaders, talk about leaders a little more. The leaders are the people that run to the suffering. They just get through it. They know it's coming, and we're just going to do it. We're just going to get through it. It's like we got a 20-mile run. Best time to start that is day one.
Yeah.
Now. Do it now. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't let your feelings get in the way. Just start now.
Yeah.
So those are leaders, the people that just get after it. Don't make excuses.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things is excuses, is especially, when I used to play soccer for a while, and now I'm kind of just venturing into the running and, marathon. And my buddy even mentioned potentially doing a half Ironman next year. I don't know. Do you know what the Ironman is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we've been thinking about preparing for that. But again, I think I just can't stress enough how important it is you don't even have to want to do those things, but to choose to do those things, especially as someone who has people kind of looking up to them. I think it's so important. And even like, I'm not a father now, but as I get older and I talk to people, and, even seeing how my dad raised me, it's, it's something to strive for, to kind of help prepare myself to be able to handle anything that comes my way.
You brought up a good point, man. And this is another area that I think leaders fail, is the way they raise their kids. I I do things differently even with my own kids, and I give my kids a lot of, latitude, if you will. I let them make mistakes, but I also train them to not quit. And so my son's 13 years old now. He wants to run with dad, and so I've been taking him out running with him, and I've told him, and I've trained him. When we step off, there is no quit beyond this point. You cannot quit. You can slow down. You can endure the pain and slow down a little bit because you got a little cramp or you got some feelings in your legs or whatever. Maybe you got to throw up. Maybe you got to whatever. But you can't quit. You have to keep going. And so beyond this line right here, when we step off, until we get back, there's no quit. So, and I told him, the number one thing you can do is establish your own pace. I've never fell out of my own run, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm training my kid. And so I think a lot of people in life need to train their kids. They need to teach their kids and be a role model and get out away from the video games and get away from, the phone, thumbing through their phone.
Yeah.
Put the phone down and train your kids. Teach your kids because they are the next generation. They're going to be products of society.
Yeah.
Which product are they going to be? And that kind of delves into, people that are of faith. We talk about, people that, and I'll just go there, and this definitely invokes leaders. People that talk about their faith in Christ, but they don't execute. They don't serve. They're not a role model for other followers of Christ. And I think they tarnish the definition or the title Christian, right? So I call those people out a lot. It's like, I don't know, we can really get off topic on
the
this.
Pharisees.
The Pharisees and the Sadducees, man. The people that just wanted to stand around in their robes and judge everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Sadducees and Pharisees out there, man. People that talk about being in the faith, but they've never served a hot meal to a homeless person, or they've never given money to somebody who's down and out, or they've never gone to pray with somebody who's sick. Those are modern day warriors. Those are leaders. And while we're on the topic, I'll just say this. A lot of people pass Christ off as a very passive, very dismissive, weak person. And I would say the best way to describe Jesus Christ is a modern day Spartan. That dude lived his life not only living as a living, breathing example without complaining, but he went to the cross without reservation, knowing what he was going to do. The night before he was crucified, the dude sweat blood because he was so anxious and fearful for what was to come the next day. He knew what he was going to go through to be crucified. But a lot of people are like, oh, Jesus, and pray about it. And I'm not saying anything about praying, and please don't take that the wrong way, but I just think that they think that, they want to be churchy about, being a follower of Christ. But being a follower of Christ is being a leader. And you have to be a follower well before you're a leader. You have to learn how to follow people before you can lead people. And I think in faith, in Christianity, as being a follower of Christ, you have to learn how to serve and follow people. I mean, you also have to learn how to become a leader and how to lead people.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I forget if it was Paul or if it was in another passage, but it was said like, to follow Christ is to die to yourself, die to your flesh, the things
It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
But yeah, I think that is a perfect example of leadership. And I think that, especially, modern day, just stereotypes, especially for men, I think, people may look at Jesus and, like you said, maybe they say like, oh, he's not a good leader or this or that. But I think, him being vulnerable enough to show that raw emotion and, express how he felt, I think is a very underrated and real part of leadership, that emotional just aspect of life. Because, at the end of the day, we all, breathe, bleed, and do the same things. And, we're humans, and just like how Jesus did, I think there's no shame in, as leaders, as, showing that emotion when things do get hard, because things are always going to get hard. But again, it's just kind of the main point of this is having that mental fortitude to, when those hard things do come, is to kind of just, all right, let's do it.
Well, yeah, man. And I think, I just call myself out. I eat accountability sandwiches every day, man, whether I like it or not. Goes along with the same, the book that Jocko Willink wrote about extreme ownership. You got to be willing to eat the accountability sandwich. Whether you're right or wrong, doesn't matter. Who cares? Get out of your feelings. Like it's not about being right. It's about accomplishing the mission. So if you remove that element out of the equation, like it's about me more than it's about the mission, then you have no excuses.
Yeah.
And so people that are, of the faith and people that follow Christ, and there's more than I can count bad examples of leaders for people that follow Christ.
Yeah.
Because they can't die to themselves. They always have to be right, or they're sending Bible verses to people, like putting a Bible verse on someone. Like, what's that going to do for that guy that you just sent the Bible verse to? Tell him what he's doing wrong? Or is the Bible verse there to encourage that person? Are you lifting the guy up? Are you helping your team member that's down in the ditch right now because they're emotionally going through it, because they live and swim in anxiety, or they live and swim in sadness because they lost somebody? I got a buddy of mine right now that just lost his wife unexpectedly. She passed away. I'm not going to send him a Bible verse out in front and lead with a Bible verse. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call him and I'm going to share examples of the scripture and how it pertains to getting him through the grief that he's going through right now.
Yeah.
And so instead of just sending in someone a few dollars, maybe feed them with food, and I love to talk about that stuff, man, because I run right to the source, man. It's like, who wants to talk about Jesus Christ? Most people avoid that conversation because it gets really sticky really fast. I run to that conversation because I know that Jesus Christ saved me from who I am and the sin that I swim in every day. I'm not Jesus Christ, and so I can't pretend to be perfect.
Yeah.
I can try to be more like Christ, and I can try to live by his example, the perfect example that he was. But I want to lead with humility. I want to lead people with humility. I don't want to be about myself, and I don't want to lead with title and position more than I want to be a leader, and I want to serve people. I want to help people. So I try to build people up. I try to encourage people, and I try, if somebody's down, I want to pray with them. I don't care if you've got oxygen in your face and you got tats all over and you got a goatee and long hair, looking like you just climbed out of some biker bar. I'm going to pray with you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what leaders do. I don't want to get in the way of my feelings to be like, oh, this guy, isn't going to want to hear this prayer. It's like the prayer's not there to make myself feel good. The prayer's there to land on that guy, to bless that guy. Yeah. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
But I think, if we're talking about leadership, that's what a real leader is. A leader is someone that just will disposition themselves for the improvement or betterment of their fellow man.
Yeah.
Right?
Going back to, you spoke about how your son and yourself started running, which I think is amazing. How important do you think it is as a parent to get your kids involved in like physical activity or sports or just hard physical activity? How important do you think that is?
I think it's critical.
And how important do you think that translates over into other aspects in their life while they grow up?
Because, and I love that question, man, I think it's critical to get your kids physically involved and to go through it. I take my son into the pain cave every morning when we run, and I tell him, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
You're going to be panting the whole way, but I'm going to pant with you. We're going to pant together.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? And so I lead by example, but I want him to go through that because I want him to get used to suffering, right? People might think I'm demented. People might think I'm the worst parent in the world, but they don't raise my kids. I raise my kids. But I think it's necessary. And obviously I'm there to support my kid, my son. But that kid, I'm so proud of my son, man, because he adapted really quick. And my son knows how serious I am when I tell him there's no quit.
Yeah.
Once we step off, he knows. He goes through it the whole way, and I check on him every 500 yards or so. You good? I'm good, Dad. Okay, even though he could barely get the words out. I'm good. He could barely get those words out. But I think it's necessary, man, because it preps him for life. I'm training him right now to go through the hard things and to be consistent in those hard things and to go through the suffering without quitting, because when you quit, you're not developing leadership skills.
Yeah.
When you do it without quit, you're developing leadership skills in the moment. You're learning how to suffer without quitting. And that's what develops leaders.
Yeah. And that's, again, going back to specifically running. That's why I don't love it. I don't love doing it. But that's why I just love just running in general, is because, like I said earlier, just how much work it takes to be just an okay runner. But even when you get to that upper echelon tier of runner, it's still not easy. Like you said, every day you guys are going out 5, 6, 7 miles, whatever it is, every single day for however many weeks. Those 7 miles, they still feel like 7 miles.
Some days they feel like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. How many are you doing now? Like each morning together?
So we're pushing 5. We're pushing 5 miles. I'm trying to acclimatize him to distance, and pace. I tell him the number one, skill you can learn when you start running is learn your pace.
That's right.
Set your pace.
Yeah.
Control your breathing and set your pace. But isn't that a lesson to be learned in many aspects of life?
Yeah.
Control your breathing, set your pace.
Yeah.
Choose your battles. Not everything is a war.
Yeah.
Not everything's a battle. Right? So, but I think there's so many elements to running that just apply to just being a better human being. Putting yourself in that suffering. And it sounds sick and demented to even say this. I love to suffer. I used to hate it. I've learned to love it because I know that there's something great on the other side of that suffering.
Yep.
I'm going to be better physically and more physically in shape because of this run, because of this physical training I'm doing at the gym, hitting the dumbbell flies and just shredding your shoulders and your delts. I know that I'm going to be better for it. So I love to run to the pain cave. I love to suffer.
Yeah. Well, it's those days too where, it's cold, it's rainy. You're like, oh man, should I go? Should I not? But you end up going, and then it feels like it's, one of the best lifts you've ever done.
Or the best run you've done.
Yeah.
You know why I love to get up on the cold mornings and the mornings it's raining and do it anyway?
Why is that?
Because nobody else is going to be there. I'm going to be there all by myself. I love that.
Yeah.
I love to be there when nobody else is. David Goggins was talking about, he ran into a guy one time and the guy's like, hey man, I'm going to come out. I'm going to be here tomorrow. Goggins said he got out there and the dude wasn't there. Goggins is like, where's he at? Said he was going to be here today running. I'm up here all by myself. And I forget where he was running. I think he was running out in the Mojave Desert area, territory maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure, but it was just funny because he said he got out there the next day and the guy wasn't to be seen. He wasn't there. It's like, of course, you're going to be there by yourself, Goggins, and he knows that.
There's another funny story that he actually said. It was a very similar story actually, where he ran into, I think he was like hiking up a mountain or running up a mountain or something, and he ran into this guy, and they got to talking or whatever. He's like, oh, I'd love to join you. And he's like, all right, man, we'll be here at this time in the morning tomorrow. And then and the guy's like, yeah, I'll be here. So Goggins, he goes there. Obviously, guy's nowhere to be seen. So, he starts hiking up this mountain. And then as he's hiking up this mountain, there's this gondola that goes to the top of the mountain that, you can ride from the bottom to the top. And as he's hiking, he makes eye contact with this guy in the gondola. So the guy must have thought that he just said like they were going to the top of the mountain. So the guy didn't think he meant they were hiking to the mountain. So Goggins sees this guy in the gondola and he's like, probably thinking to himself like, oh, so that's what you were thinking about. Yeah. I just thought it was funny. But
yeah, he's got a couple of stories and one of the funniest ones is when he's running, there's a dude, I think he's in Vegas running. It's like 110 degrees or something. The dude slows down. He's driving beside Goggins. He's like, dude, what the heck are you out here for? it's like 110 degrees. And he's like, I'm out here because you're not.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's the best answer, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out here because you're not.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
true.
It's true. And it's, it's another reason why I kind of have picked up running, because I know there are so many people that are just, they're dead man walking. I think I said this in a prior pod, but most people, they die when they're 22, but they don't get buried till they're 85.
Dude, that's so well said, man.
All these people, after they go through high school, college, whatever it may be, they kind of just go out into the world and typical 9 to 5, you wake up, you go to work, go to bed, or you wake up, you go to work, take care of the kids, go to bed, and it's just, rinse and repeat every day. And I think a lot of people, like, they are just dead men walking. I even saw this stat the other day. It's like in the United States that there's it was like around like 30% of people have a gym membership, but out of those 30%, only about 5% actually use it.
You sure it's 5? It might be 3.
It might be 3.
It might be 3, dude. That's funny, man.
But again, it just goes back to my point. Like, there's so many people that are just okay with just being average. And that's why, some of the most successful people or just leaders, they're called crazy. They have OCD, whatever it is, but they're just so locked in on the goal, no matter what the weather. Like you said, the rain doesn't have feelings, the heat doesn't have feelings. They're just there to win.
Well, and I think too many people they want to put a title on it. They want to call you crazy. That's just a title. Not crazy. I'm just willing to do more than you. Right? And so, for me, it's like, I talk about running into the pain cave. I love to suffer. I love to run to the suffering. I like to be there. I always say the day that they put me in the ground, I don't want anything in the tank. I want 0 in the tank. I love to run on an empty tank.
Yeah.
Because an empty tank, you've got no reserves. You're literally living on steam and adrenaline. That's it. There's nothing else. I didn't get all fat and happy with, complex carbs and then go out on a 20-mile run. I got 0 in the tank. And so when I start off, I want to make sure I've got 0 in the tank. When I finish, I want to make sure I got 0 in the tank.
Yeah. I even saw this video on Instagram. There was this guy who's saying, a lot of people, when they go to heaven, they want to, they want to be full, they want to be filled. But he was saying when he gets to heaven, he hopes that he is exhausted. As in that he hopes that he has done everything in his power, physically, mentally, that he has helped as many people as possible, that he has become the best version of himself that he can be. So he just hopes to be just absolutely exhausted when he gets there. And I think that's a great way to put it.
I think you brought up a great point, man. And I want to emphasize this. Do we really think that when Christ was crucified, he was fulfilled? He felt fulfilled. He felt full. He felt great. No. I fully believe Christ left this earth with 0 in the tank. He went through it.
Yeah.
And he lived that life, where he lived by example. But if we put our feet together, and then we imagine a dude driving a nail through our feet.
Yeah.
You freaking imagine how painful that is.
Yeah.
And you're watching it. Or put your hand out and then let a dude drive a 16-penny nail through your hand and stake you to wood, to a tree.
Well, this is all after your limbs are
broken.
Your limbs, like, you can see the insides of your body.
Because you got beat with a cat of 9 tails.
Yeah.
After all that. You're right. Absolutely. And so do we think that Christ really left like feeling perfect? No. He left with 0 in the tank.
Yeah.
He exited stage left with 0 in the tank. And I think, too many people want to be filled and they want to have their comfort and their style and all that nonsense. I just think that, we should want to leave in an empty tank. So I love what that guy said.
Yeah. And again, it's just, I talk about running because it's what I can relate to, but it just goes back to like physical activity and running, that that feeling of, like you said, you start empty and you end empty. I mean, I feel with gels, so I can't relate in that sense. my as I told you earlier, my mental fortitude is the caffeinated gel packs.
But you're out there, right?
That's
You're
right.
getting it, man. It's
Yeah.
all right. It's okay.
There's actually a funny story. When I was training for the Athens Marathon, Athens, Ohio.
Athens, Sparta.
The Athens, Ohio Marathon.
Yeah.
I was coming up on my longest run of my training program, and it was, prior to that, it was like early spring, like February, March,
Yeah.
April, when I was training for this. And so it was cold, for the most part while I was training. And I went back to Columbus to help out my folks with some stuff. So I was back home, more south from Ashland, obviously. So it was a little hotter. It was like maybe like 75, like maybe 80 degrees, which isn't that hot, but in comparison to what I was used to running, it was really bad. And I think the night before I had like 2 slices of pizza and just a bunch of nonsense. So I go out there, I started early, like I don't know, 7 a.m. or something like that. I was doing 18. Well, that was the plan. I was doing 18 miles. I'm like, I get to mile like I don't know, 8. I'm like, wow, I feel good, man. Like I'm going a little faster than scheduled, but feeling good. And then like, a few hours in, it's like noon, the sun starts beaming, and
humidity sets in.
Yep. And my dad was like, oh, I can meet you somewhere. Just tell me where you be at, like mile whatever, and I'll give you some water. I was like, all right, cool. And then so I'm at mile, like, I don't know, like mile 9 or 10. And my dad pulls up and he's like, dude, like, did you see a ghost or something? What happened? Like, he said I was like white. And you know how you get like the salt around your mouth and you're dehydrated?
Oh yeah.
He was like, dude,
you all right?
what happened to you? So yeah, I unfortunately didn't end up doing 18 that day, but I was just so disappointed with myself that I went out to make a point that I did it. The next couple of days I did it. So, but yeah, just a funny story. But again, just going back to that mental fortitude and how that relates to our leaders, that just, they always want to be better, or they always want to be on target with what you said, be about it.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Exactly. So
yep.
Just made it a point, and when I did eventually do the 18 miles, it just felt that much better that we actually did it.
Yeah, most leaders, man, are running on, like I said before, they're running on steam and adrenaline, man. And if you ever read or study military veterans or members that ever was awarded the Medal of Honor, most typically they were running with zero in the tank because they were in a very extreme situation and there was fatigue and blood, and they were literally running on adrenaline to get their team through, that battle, that fight. So that's what leaders are made of. They're not made by titles and rank and position. Yeah. That's not a leader to me. That's just a person behind a placard or a title or a chevron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we've covered a lot about leaders, covered a lot about discipline, and
I agree.
And the mental fortitude aspect, as you say, when it comes to being a leader. Just one thing to end off with, for the people that may be watching this, or the people that, when it comes to like their physical health, or again starting the business, they're like, oh, should I not? maybe it's a New Year's resolution every year, but they kind of fall short, after so many weeks. What do you tell those people to kind of jumpstart their start to whatever it is?
Day one is today, not tomorrow. And it really, the commitment is up to them. What level of commitment do they want to commit to? What day one is today, not tomorrow. And so I would say start and just keep doing it. Day in and day out, rain, shine, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because, for everybody that goes through hard things, they're going through, and hard things aren't just going out for a 15-mile run, 20-mile run. Hard things are a divorce, losing a job, losing someone in your family that's close to you. Those are all hard things. And I think that putting yourself out there, physically every morning, it's the first thing I like to do is I like to get into the pain cave. I like to sweat, right? And Nick Bear talks about that. He loves to sweat every morning, every day. He loves to sweat because he knows that there's improvement. But to do that, at least it gives you a baseline for those hard things when they come.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I was talking to my girlfriend a few days ago, actually, and she mentioned something because we were talking about like going to the gym and stuff, and she was like, the best day to start was yesterday, but the next best day is today. So yeah, just some food for thought for our viewers out there.
Yeah, good, man.
That has been the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Whenever everything regarding leadership, again, joined by my friend and boss here. I know we don't throw on the titles according to the episode, but joined again by CEO of Smart Digital, Brent Canfield. I've been Caden, and we will see you guys next week for the next episode.